Welcome back, everybody, to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. Today is Wednesday, August 27th. We got a great episode for you. We're both here in person. Bayern Munich just beat by the skin of their teeth Wehen Wiesbaden in the first round of the DFB Pokal at the death. We're going to preview the weekend's matches, Bayern Munich versus Augsburg in the Bundesliga and Chelsea Football Club versus Fulham. And I'm shooting from the hip, running on fumes, and Jim's got documents and documents and documents of notes.
It's funny, and in all those notes I don't have the team listed that Bayern played today. I never once learned the team, the name that they were called. Didn't need to know because they were some random third-level team in the Bundesliga in Germany. So great for Bayern to get that win against a team that I'll still never know.
Well, I'm going to say it Wehen Wiesbaden, and I think that's right. I'm trying to really get the full pronunciation right, that WV sound. So, hey, if it's wrong, I'd love for you to tell me in the comments. But, yeah, let's jump right in because I think we got a lot to talk about. 3-2 victory. Kane scored a brace. Also missed a penalty, but made a penalty and scored a beautiful header crossed in from Stanišić in the, 94th minute out of 95? And then Olise had that other goal for Bayern. So kind of tough to really analyze a match like this in my mind just because it's a cup match. It's early in the year. A lot of backups were playing, but a lot of starters as well. So just a lot of crazy stuff going on. But we're going to do our very best to give you a full breakdown. And actually, before I say anything else, please subscribe to our YouTube channel here. Always Bayern Chelsea. Leave a like, leave a comment, all that stuff. We really appreciate the love we've been getting lately. So thank you. We're building a football community here.
Ton of love that we've been getting lately. Comment. I love to see any type of comment. We blew right past 250 subscribers on YouTube, so now we will be maybe doing a giveaway at 300 because we're just a rocket ship straight to the moon at this point. There's just no stopping us.
Yes, so stay tuned for that. We'll do a cool giveaway or something fun coming up here. But, the football season is just go, go, go. It's hard to find time for anything else. This last weekend, I was down at the Milwaukee Mile photographing the Indy race where my team won the race. So I was down in the winner's circle, popping champagne, taking photos. And then I went right to another event this week to photograph. Summers are crazy for me, but I was standing in the corner of the event watching the match on my phone. So don't tell my boss, but we got it done.
Yeah, today's match was actually one of the better matches I've seen as a fan. Really just any type of fan that you could be, you'd have a fun time watching this match because it's a cup match, which are always exciting. You're going to see players that are really working hard for minutes. A lot of times you're going to have substitute type players, but it's also a top team, the best team in the Bundesliga, against a lower level team. So it's going to be that underdog mentality match. And thankfully, we as fans were gifted with a tremendous David Goliath match, and it really ended up being exactly that. Bayern are originally up, but David ends up drawing level, and then it comes down to the last couple of minutes. So you really couldn't have asked for something better.
Yeah, incredibly exciting match today. And if you're Bayern Munich, you're going to have what I call the Serena Williams syndrome in this world, which is if there's any tennis fans out there like me, and I know like you as well, you'll know that whenever people would play Serena Williams, they would reach a level that they never have reached in their lives. And, I don't know if it's because they're fired up to play Serena. She's the greatest tennis player of all time, one of the greatest athletes of all time. But people just would reach another level, and she would comment on that sometimes, and that's what happened in this cup match in my mind, and it happens to Bayern Munich a lot, and I love it. There's a lot of people that I think complain about that type of thing, but I personally love it because it means you're a historically great team, and it means you're the best at what you do. So I think you can't have it both ways. You're going to have teams really pull out all the stops against you if you're a Goliath like Bayern Munich. So that is what happened today, but Bayern Munich came through and got the win.
Yeah, and when you're a team like that playing against Bayern, you're not going to have any pressure. So you just have the liberty and the freedom to do whatever you want on that pitch, essentially, which sometimes means you're going to have hard fouls, sometimes means you're going to bury your chances, but really just means that you'll be playing fast and free. And even though that was the case, Bayern still did end up dominating this match for the most part, except for a couple blips. And ultimately, Bayern should have had more than the 3 goals they ended up with. But I really did like what I saw from them right from the get-go. I mean, we saw right away, within the first, 10 seconds, there was a chance on goal?
Yeah, Diaz had that chance, like 10 seconds in. Shot it essentially right at the keeper, but the keeper did make a nice save. So that was kind of how the match started. And, Bayern dominated. I don't know what the stats are, but I would guess Bayern had, I think, probably at least 75% possession, maybe closer to 80. I feel like they got 20 shots. I don't know, how many good shots they had or whatever. Maybe more like 10. But it was a domination on all accounts except for that finishing. Just to quickly run through the lineup. We had Jonas Erbig in goal. I believe Neuer serving a suspension from last year's Pokal red card. I think it carries over into this year, if I'm not mistaken. Erbig, I thought, could have did a little bit better on the goals, but ultimately they weren't really his fault. Sacha Boey at right back. Boey is rated pretty low on SofaScore, but I actually thought he had a really nice match. I don't know if he was positioned poorly for any of those goals. If he was, sound off in the comments.
He wasn't.
I didn't think he was either. I thought, that was more on Jonathan Tah, who didn't have the best game either in my mind. I thought Kim had a really solid game. I thought he was the better of the 2 center backs. Rafa Guerrero at left back was maybe the worst player on the pitch. And we got Davies, who's injured. We got Ito, who's injured. We got Stanišić at left back. So I don't think Guerrero is going to be a prominent left back on this team. He shouldn't be, quite frankly. I think there's ways you can use him, but just at left back, I don't think he's the best. Kimmich and Pavlovic in the midfield. Thought Kimmich was rock solid, really good. Pavlovic I thought was kind of so-so. Michael Olise at right wing, thought he was good. Carl at the 10, thought he had a poor first half, but a really good second half. Luis Diaz on the left wing, like we said, happened right away. This was kind of one of those games for Diaz where he would, be super creative, making chances, but just couldn't find the back of the net. And then Harry Kane was the striker, probably the man of the match, scored a brace, but did miss a pen and did miss a couple chances as well. So I thought Kane had a great game, but he probably could have buried a couple more too.
Yeah, I loved the lineup from Vincent Kompany because you had most of your mainstays, Kane, Olise, Kimmich, Tah, in the lineup, but then you had the guys that have been fringe all along. Started a lot last year, Guerrero, Pavlovic. These guys are fighting for a spot in that starting lineup, so they were getting these minutes, which was key. The only really young guy you had was Carl, and I thought he deserved to start as well from the flashes we've seen of him. So lineup was a good mix of all that, and it did show that Bayern was capable of playing with these guys because, as I said, they were dominating in the start with that Diaz chance. Then Kane gets a chance early on that he probably should put away, but ultimately then there's a handball for a penalty that they did call. Did they call?
Oh, wait. Yeah, clear as day handball. No VAR in this round of the Pokal, so that was a bummer. Yeah, I tweeted it out that the defense resorted to using their hands to stop Kane. That's how good he is. So there was that, unfortunately, but justice was sort of served, but also the penalty that ended up happening was also probably a penalty. Sacha Boey gets dragged down in the box, and really when you have both hands on a guy and he's going... attempting to score off of a cross and you drag him down, that's just going to be a penalty. Kane steps up in this one, does a stutter step, peeks at the goalie, which you hate, and nails it. So maybe he should have did that on his second one.
Yeah, no, it's a good penalty from Kane. I just personally like guys who run up, bury it, but I'm not going to complain when a guy makes a penalty and makes 32 in a row without missing. Wildly impressive stat there from Kane. And this first 20 minutes, I was loving what I was seeing from Bayern. Loved the movement from Kane up top. Really liked the play from Diaz. I thought what he provided on the wing, on the touchline, was terrific, cutting inside. Thought he was really getting some nice passes in the middle of the field as well. And then Bue was doing the exact same thing, but on the other side for Bayern, which I thought was very interesting. So those three guys were my top three kind of in that first half hour. I thought they each really gave Bayern a lot to offer.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. And I mean, it's no secret that Kompany just wants his fullbacks bombing up and down the pitch, and then wants his center backs also playing pretty high, but kind of playing more centrally and kind of controlling that defensive side of the game. You run into problems with a guy like Guerrero who can't really track back, obviously like a Davies can, but you just can't track back and defend like you need him to, leaving the center of the pitch wide open at times, and putting so much strain on those center backs. And you got a guy like Upamecano not playing in this one. Upa is a guy who stepped up to the plate last year. I mean, he did everything Kompany asked of him, and Kompany asks a lot of his center backs, obviously being a world-class center back himself. Upa can do it. Kim last year showed he probably couldn't, but granted, Kim was injured, so there's that, fighting through injury. Ta so far hasn't shown that he's been able to do it. I feel a little bit bad because I know I've been kind of harsh on Ta since he's come over to Bayern, but he hasn't looked fast enough. He's a good communicator, he's a good leader, but he just hasn't looked like he has that speed to kind of make up for any positional errors. And like I said, Kompany asks a lot of his center backs, but we see it later in this match. He kind of falls asleep for a bit, and then goals are scored because of how vulnerable those center backs are. I kind of joked a lot about it last year, but I genuinely am kind of missing Eric Dyer.
Yeah, it's tough, And in this first half, I really wasn't even paying attention to the center backs because they did not have much to do at all with the way Bayern was controlling the match. I think clearly Bayern likes Ta. They like his potential. They like his leadership, the fact that he can partner with pretty much anybody, it seems like.
He can speak so many different languages. I mean, he communicates with Upa in French.
Right, exactly. And I think that all kind of ties into it.
Well, Dyer speaks 7.
But Ta was clearly great on a Leverkusen team that dismantled Bayern, and I think that kind of draws a lot of people in. I think he's a really good Bundesliga center back.
German national team too, yeah.
And that might just not be enough to get Bayern to the Champions League level they want, but he's certainly a serviceable player. So yeah, I mean, it certainly will be interesting to see going forward how that partnership gets better. I mean, they can only get better as a duo.
Yeah, I will say though, one takeaway I have from this game, and I've been thinking it for a while, but I'm just going to outright say it now. Bayern board, just stop effing around and give Upamecano what he wants. If you don't pay him what he wants and he leaves, you're going to have to spend however much money to find a replacement. Upa is really the glue holding this back line together outside of Neuer on a normal day. I had issues with the mistakes he made 2 years ago and prior, but last year he really stepped up, and he is the key defender for this team right now. So you just got to pay the guy, and, that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, he's certainly a guy that they'll need going forward, so we'll see what happens there. And if he were to get hurt, it would be, I think, a tougher spot for Bayern. I mean,
we saw it last year.
I guess their fourth would be Stanišić, right? I mean,
/ Ito, yeah, but Ito's out.
Yeah, I mean, again, Bayern just don't have the most depth in the world.
That's another thing we learned today. I think, a Kompany gets a lot of flack left and right. People saying he needs to start Karl over Gnabry every game, and I'm a fan of Karl, so that's no slight to Karl, but you see it in this first half. He wasn't quite ready in the first half. Again, I thought he had a really, really good second half, and
Kompany ripped him though.
Kompany, I think, kind of said what I'm saying, didn't he? Didn't he say?
No, he just said he started out like shit. Lost the ball 5 times.
Yeah. But my point is, Kompany's job is to win every game he plays, basically, at Bayern Munich, and if he doesn't, shit's going to hit the fan even more than it does when people get on his case for not playing all these youngsters. But Bayern right now, their starting 11, I think, can compete and beat anybody in the world. But you start to have a few key injuries. I mean, even Musiala being out right now, but Upa, like you said, if Kane gets injured, good luck is all I'll say.
Yeah, that depth will be something to watch going forward, for sure. But as we kind of continued on in this match, we did see Bayern eventually get a second early in the second half through Michael Olise. Again, I thought it was some great play from Bue, kind of leading to the goal. And there was just a ton of chances in this first 60 before we see them have the lapses. Diaz had at least 2 more chances, both that he should have scored. I know at least one of them you didn't see, maybe you caught in the highlights, but the ball falls to him at one point, pretty close to kind of the penalty spot, maybe even closer, and he just skies it over the net.
Yeah.
From close range. So tough day for Diaz. I tweeted out he was going to score because the way he was playing, he was doing everything except putting the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, he was. And don't take this the wrong way. Again, I've said this before, but it was a Leroy Sané-esque performance. So creative, just doing everything right to get a 1v1 situation and then missing the finish. I'm not going to tear Diaz apart. I think these balls are going to start falling, and you saw him play a phenomenal match against Leipzig. You saw him score the winner in the Super Cup. So, again, I'm not tearing him apart at all. But, yeah, Guerrero had a chance, too, in there where I believe it was a nice save. And I will say that their keeper was phenomenal. Kaya, the guy who scored both their goals, was probably their best player just because he scored 2 great goals. But their keeper was looking like Neuer out there. So, yeah, I mean, Olise gets that goal for Bayern, and then both of their goals kind of come in succession, 64th and 70th. And at this moment, it's funny, I missed about 6 minutes of the game live because I was back taking photos at the event. And then I looked back at my phone after I probably jumped back in the 71st minute, and I saw your texts talking about how they scored, and then I saw the scoreboard and I thought it was wrong because I thought you were talking about 1 goal. Yeah. So I thought you were talking about 1 goal, and I'm like, but it says it's 2-2. How could they have scored 2 goals in the 5 minutes that I wasn't watching this? Granted, the whole match Bayern had possession, so I was just completely confused.
No, it's funny. Yeah, I kind of thought you were trolling, actually, just that it couldn't possibly be 2-2. And
well, that too.
Yeah, it certainly was. In that 64th minute. And I'm kind of loosely watching on my phone at work, so kind of seeing in and out. Sometimes I'll just hear that it's a goal, rewind 20 seconds to see the run-up. And, they kind of had the ball on the left wing. Olise lost a ground duel. The guy gets the ball back. And then Olise kind of just drifts a little bit off. I thought it was weird. He could have pressured him more, gives him the space that he needs to deliver what was a perfect cross. I mean, there's no denying it was a perfect cross, but Tau was caught out of position. It was a great cross, but he could have been in better position. Credit to their man, the captain, who puts it right in the back of the net, but you could argue Tau was a little bit asleep there, and certainly was asleep on the second, I thought, as well. Really nice deep ball from the keeper is flicked on by another player on their team. I think Kim was the guy that was on him going for the aerial duel. And then Tau's guy basically just out-hustles him to the ball and ends up with a 1v1 against Urbig and puts it away cleanly.
Yeah, and in between those goals, Kompany does go to his bench and starts to bring on some of the veterans. Gnabry and Goretzka. I don't know what I was going to say, but 2 of the most hated guys on all of social media, Gnabry and Goretzka, they come in. I think they did a nice enough job, I wouldn't say they were like total game changers, but they really held things down. And I will say that after that second goal, Bayern didn't panic. They didn't force things. They stayed calm. And I think they knew that their chances were going to fall. I mean, again, I don't have the stats. I could look at them, but I'm just going to try to pride myself on remembering. Bayern, 80% possession, 20 shots, whatever it was. Like, you're gonna, if you're Bayern Munich, they're gonna fall eventually. So yeah, and then the next action of the match here, 76th minute, is Kane's missed penalty. Happens on a play where Kane gets kicked in the box, and I thought they didn't call the penalty at this time because I'm not listening with audio. Again, I'm standing in the corner at an event trying to look at my phone. And I was like, I probably fired off 25 texts to you in that period of time because I was like, there's no way they didn't call the handball first. Now they're not calling this, like, and there's no VAR, so come on. But yeah, it was called, and Kane steps up to the spot, and like he always does, Harry Kane, 32 in a row. He missed it. How did that happen? No, great save by the keeper. This time Kane just ran right up and banged it to a great spot, but the keeper guessed right, and even if you do guess right, it's not easy to save as good of a shot as this was. So great save, and it was kind of a double save because Kane gets it back off the rebound, tries to head it in, it goes off somebody else again, and there's just chaos, but somehow the ball doesn't go in. Guerrero tries to score it, Gnabry tries to score it, and somehow the ball stays out of the net.
Yeah, it was a super good save by the keeper, who you mentioned had a phenomenal day. Kane will not be upset with the penalty he took there. And, you know, going back to these subs, I wrote this down because it'll be true for Voncon and I think a lot of fans watching, but just disappointing that you have to bring subs on in a match like this, in my opinion. A match that I'm expecting to be 3-0 up at half, and you can sub on some young guys that won't get minutes in a lot of other matches. You know, playing a lower-tiered team, you'd like to rest some of these guys midweek, especially at the beginning of a season when you want to be fresh for the weekend. So definitely will be disappointing that they had to do that. Is it the right call in that moment? Of course, you know, when it's a one-goal match and you want to make sure to shore up the victory, but still, looking back, you know, they'll think it would have been nice to get other guys minutes for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I had predicted was going to happen in this match. I thought it was going to happen. We were up 2-0 in whatever it was, the 60th or maybe even before then minute, and I thought it was going to be one of those days where, hey, you get Kusiasari, Daiber, Kiala, you know, maybe some of these youngsters. I don't even know if they were all in the squad for this, to be honest, but I was hoping you get some of these guys some minutes, and the inverse happened, like you said. But I'm glad Kompany took this one seriously enough. You know, you saw Tuchel didn't. Nagelsmann, Flick. Bayern has had some bad losses in the Pokal, so it'd be really nice to get a domestic double this year, and I'm glad Kompany's taking it seriously. Although, you know, this is kind of a side, but logistically, the team traveled to the stadium like right before the match. Almost every match I know of, they travel at least the night before. So to go to the stadium, like right to the town, which I think is by Frankfurt, to travel, you know, from Munich to Frankfurt-ish, day of, as you're playing a match, I feel like that's logistically not a great choice.
Yeah, that's tough. And maybe it's a Pokal match. That's why they did that. Just really tough things going on in the Brewery game right now, and that's why it's extra tough for me even describing this tough situation. I guess the good news travel-wise is that Bayern has a close match this weekend as well. Whether that was calculated into all this as well.
Yeah, true. Augsburg's probably the closest team to Munich, yeah. Next up, we got some more subs. Leimer comes on for Bouet in the 77th. Stanišić comes on for Guerrero in the 78th. And I'll say this again because I feel like I've been saying it a lot. Stanišić is playing out of position as a left back. He's more of a right back. And he continues to deliver for me. And again, it's night and day with Kompany's system. What happens when you have Leimer and Stanišić in versus Guerrero and Bouet? And granted, Bouet I thought did very good in this game. Thought he had a great Club World Cup. So I'm not just like saying Bouet is always going to give you stinkers, but generally speaking, the difference that Leimer and Stanišić compared to Guerrero, Bouet is very noticeable. And you know, these guys are going to be aggressive and bomb up the pitch in this Kompany system, kind of play like wingbacks basically. And finally, in the 94th minute, you know, we're at the death. We're 1 minute away from the end of the match. Stanišić whips in one of the most gorgeous, juicy, delicious, beefy crosses you'll ever see. So go ahead and watch that one. And Kane scores it with his head for what would be the moment of the match. Again, I don't know if you have any other notes. I'm shooting from the hip for this one, but if there's one thing you got to watch that.
Yeah, brilliant way to finish the match and a fitting end because Bayern definitely deserved the win. Although this lower team that I still can't say the name, don't even care to know, made it close and made it exciting. And that's what all of us as fans wanted. Nobody wants to see PKs either, Although sometimes it's fun to see 12 against 11. I'm sure that could happen somewhere. There had to be some match probably on some day that ended 12-11 in PKs today. Like a big team in the EPL that loses to a League 2 team. I mean, not that could ever possibly happen.
No, not a historic team.
Not a historic team with a Portuguese coach that's been a fraud since he showed up.
Yeah, so we end this one here 2-3. We get out of Dodge. We take the win. We move on to the next round in the Pokal. Analyze it if you want. If you're a Bayern fan, hell, we just did. But, yeah, I mean, it's a cup match. Crazy things can happen. Be happy with the win. Man of the match is going to be Harry Kane. We'll go defender, Kim. I thought Kim was the best defender on the day. Robin of the match, Olise. And underrated, we'll go Sasha Bouet.
Yeah, my only change will be Robin is Luis Diaz, and I know he didn't necessarily have the stats out there, but the tone that he set from the start for me was really key because he was the guy firing on all cylinders, putting the pressure on this no-name team, and I loved that from the start. And I'm going to be his biggest supporter as long as he continues to have doubters and haters.
I guess we move on to Augsburg this weekend. We're looking at a Saturday morning match, I believe 8:30, but I'm going to confirm right now. And by 8:30, I mean 11:30 standard time. Yeah, against Augsburg, Bayern's closest team in the Bundesliga. It's no 1860 Munich, but it is relatively close, southern Germany. So, yeah, Bayern travels there. To preview this one, I don't have a whole lot to say. Again, no notes. Augsburg, new head coach this year. My absolute boy, Sandro Wagner. I called it when he was an assistant coach that he was going to be the next big thing. So Augsburg is kind of a strange team because they don't have really big names, or at least a lot of big names where, you never think they're going to be good. I think maybe last year or recently I predicted them to get relegated or something or be really far down the table, and they surprised me. So they kind of hover around that mid-table range, but I think Sandro Wagner might move them in the right direction just because I love that man so much. They won, Freiburg last week. I knew they had a good win in the opening week. 3-1, I think.
Yeah, so both teams are hot right now. Bayern, obviously, we know the wins they've had as of late. Augsburg hot as well. Have won 2 in a row, had a DFB Pokal match victory, and then they won the Battle of the Bergs. So really good for them.
Did you just come up with that? Or did you premeditate that?
That's what everybody calls it.
Wow. So there we go. I think Kompany's going to roll with a similar lineup to what you saw against Leipzig. I think Neuer will be the keeper. I think you'll see Leimer, Upa, and Ta. I think you'll see Stanišić. Kimmich for sure in the midfield. I would bet my paycheck on Kimmich starting in the midfield. The other spot in the midfield is where things are a little questionable. I think he's going to go back to Goretzka, as Pavlovic didn't really do enough in this one, I think, to convince Kompany, but we'll see. The attack, I think, will be Olise on the right wing, Gnabry at the 10, Diaz at the left wing, and Kane at that 9. You have any other crazy predictions to put out there?
I think my prediction was 3-1. I want to say that I entered in. I'd have to look sure.
And I said 4-0, but I might change that because that was right after the Leipzig match. I put that one in.
Yeah, I just think Bayern are hot right now. I think they're playing really well with the guys they have. Depth be damned. I just think when they do have their guys, and if they're going to stay healthy, they're going to be just a solid squad. And sometimes that can be better if you're healthy for those guys all playing together. So we'll see what happens with the lineup, but agree it's probably going to be what we've seen, not in the Pokal match, but last week against Leipzig. It'll be an interesting time as well, 11:30 over here. Kind of on a huge college football weekend, so fans that are into that have to contend with both sports now. But I just think Bayern are going to be a machine here for a little bit until something drastic happens. So I really look for them to start on a great note again and stay hot.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Bayern's going to get the win. Again, 4-0 might have been me high on that Leipzig match. We'll see what I end up predicting in my final prediction, which will be live on Twitter before the match. 3-1 is sounding pretty nice. I might go with something like that. But yeah, I mean, I said Sandro Wagner, Augsburg's coach. Their keeper, Finn Dahmen, is another guy who you might recognize in the Bundesliga. Asende is one of their forwards who scores a lot of goals for them. But yeah, that's kind of the main thing to talk about.
There's a lot of rumors right now about Nico Jackson potentially going on loan to Bayern. Do not expect him in the lineup or even on the bench against Augsburg. I think even if a move like that does happen, it'll just take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and you had conflicting reports at the time of recording this, so that means by the time I post this, hopefully tomorrow, things will be twisted and turned in 5 different pretzels. But you got Florian Plettenberg, one of the most well-known German reporters, Sky Sports, Deutschland, saying that it's looking like it's a done deal. Nico to Bayern, and you got Fabrizio Romano saying that pump the brakes, kid. This deal is not done yet, and we'll see what happens. But Nico to Bayern, I think if Bayern gets it on a loan, just covering his salary, no obligation to buy, I think is a good deal for Bayern, good piece for depth. I'd also be interested to see what Nico could do behind Kane at the 10 or even in a 2-striker system. So could be a nice loan for Bayern, but I don't know if Chelsea feels the same.
My ultimate take is if they cover his salary and it's an obligation to buy, I'm for sure happy. If it's just a regular loan and they cover salary, I'm halfway happy as long as that was the only option and Newcastle didn't want him, nobody else was going to take him. Then I understand because he clearly doesn't really feel like he belongs at Chelsea at this point. And I think he has potential at Bayern. So if he were to go over there and kill it, then you're only going to be able to sell him for more next summer. So that I'm fine with. If it is just that straight loan, though, and there's the risk where he gets hurt or doesn't end up playing well, that to me would be a very major disappointment because then his value would tank and nobody would want to see that because he would just turn into a tougher guy to sell next year, a la Nkunku for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, say it happens. I think he'll provide something for Bayern, especially with Musiala being out. What you worry about if you're a Chelsea fan, or I guess if you're a Bayern fan, is, Kompany kind of goes back into his ways, which we saw last year, which is he doesn't rotate. Say for whatever reason Nico isn't part of the starting 11, which, I mean, it is possible. I mean, Kane's not going to sit, Musiala's not going to sit, Olise is not going to sit. Diaz could potentially sit. We'll see what happens with him, but you're not probably going to play Nico as a true left wing. So if that doesn't happen, you could see him not getting much playing time. I do think, however, Kompany has learned from last year a bit. We're seeing already more rotation than he had last year. So I don't think that's like the biggest concern, but it is an outside possibility.
I got to say, if I'm Bayern and I'm just imagining this lineup, the way they've been playing Diaz and the way he's looked, I could totally just play Kane, Diaz, Nico, Olise, and I think that's a killer lineup.
Yeah.
I think with those guys like interchanging, I think Diaz has looked so good in the middle of the pitch on the left-hand side. We know Kane comes back to get the ball a ton, so Jackson can go up when Kane's going back. Like, these guys can change so much. I think that could be such a strong attack. And then you still have Serge, off the bench, Carl, that you can slowly bring in Musiala when he does get healthy.
Yeah, I think that would be a great attack as well. It's just the thing of, like, I'm talking 6 months down the road, Musiala is going to be playing every match. However, I'm also a guy who's of the opinion that you need to be careful with Musiala. That injury that he had was so gruesome and so brutal that there's a good chance he's not going to be back to himself this year. And I'm not saying that as in like his career is dead. I'm just saying there's a good chance that this year he's not going to be able to do the things that he always did with the ball on his foot. So I've always said this. I'm sure I said it many times on the show last year because I know I've said it to you a bunch of times, but I'm really interested in seeing what Nico could do, not as a true like target man number 9. And like you said, Bayern's attack is so fluid that him playing at the 10, when Muller would play with Kane, Muller would lead the press, and I could see Nico doing something like that. So it's super interesting. But there were rumors that Bayern toyed around of trying to get Benjamin Šeško like 2 years ago to play with Kane. So it could be something like that. Again, I don't know if you call it a 2-striker system or if it's just 9 and 10, but they're just so fluid. Whatever you want to call it doesn't really matter. I think it could work out.
Boy, did they dodge a bullet not getting him, because he is terrible for Man United. Guy was their 10th penalty taker today. He's a striker. He didn't step up until number 10, their last outfield player to take a penalty against a League 2 team. Ugh.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't want to judge anybody on Man U because I think they're just such a dumpster fire that it's really tough for me to judge them. But we can go ahead and laugh, I guess.
Yeah, we'll laugh. We'll keep laughing about United, and most importantly, we'll keep talking about Chelsea, who look to maintain the momentum against Fulham on Saturday. Early morning match over here in Milwaukee. Another London derby. I've been talking about how it's important Chelsea get off to this hot start because all their matches to start the year are in the city of London.
So 3 in a row.
Yeah, and then they play Brentford coming off the break, which is another in London. So going to be awesome for Chelsea. But Fulham coming off 2 straight draws against Brighton and Man United, who we just talked about. Fulham scored late in that match after allowing a rigged penalty. United getting all the calls, and they're still losing. But, yeah, Fulham can be a tough team at times. We saw Chelsea draw, I think, once last year and then scrape out a win in what was seen as the turning point match late in the year for Chelsea. He had those Tyreek George and Pedro Neto goals to win 2-1 on Easter Sunday. Yep. When I wasn't watching live. One of the more epic games, really, in my Chelsea career, even though I wasn't watching. So, going to be a tough one, but I think Chelsea, the way they looked against West Ham, I think they're going to be coming out firing strong against this Fulham side.
Yeah, I expect that too. I think the Crystal Palace match was a little bit of a blip. I think Chelsea is going to be back at it. I think their attack is just not necessarily too strong to fail, but kind of too strong to fail, especially against a team like Fulham, who I think is fine, but nothing. I don't think they're Chelsea's level.
Yeah, I think Fulham are tough at times just because they're gritty and a tougher team. They got a lot of strong physical players. Iwobi's one of those guys who always plays really good against Chelsea. They usually have Robinson, one of the best left backs. I think he's actually out, but just another example of kind of the way their team is built. I think they're well managed for the most part, but talent just isn't at the level of Chelsea. And even on a day where Cole Palmer will probably be out once again as they rest him, ahead of this international break, I don't think that's going to be an issue for Chelsea, where it would have been the last couple of seasons. You got Estevao now that can come in, and not to mention you still have all these other great attackers up top, Neto, Pedro, Delap, Enzo Fernandez. They're just not hurting in that department.
Yeah, agreed. And I really am interested in seeing more of Estevao as a neutral, I guess. I think the kid is really special, and I want to see what he can do, especially against some of these like Premier League mainstays. I'll say not necessarily the top of the table, but just Premier League mainstays.
Yeah, I agree. Each day is going to be a new challenge for him. It would have been nice for him to slowly get integrated into the squad, and that could still happen. We might see this match where he goes with Gittins on the left and Neto on the right. It's, again, I talked about how we're almost forgetting about Gittins before the season. Now that Esteval's looked great and Palmer's hurt, we're kind of almost forgetting about him again. So who knows? Maybe he goes with Gittins, Neto. Maybe he doesn't even do the two-striker system. There's so many options that Maresca has. So I think that will be a fluid situation and kind of depend on the match until Palmer is really healthy. And then the other change that I think I'd look to make if I'm Enzo Maresca is to start Reece James. I don't know if it's going to be this week on, week off for James to manage his fitness, but with Gusto starting last week, I think James is a better fit against a more physical team, against a guy like Iwobi on that side. I trust Reece James way more than Gusto in terms of actually defending.
Yeah, I was going to say I would start James in this one as well. Otherwise, maybe you keep things relatively the same to what you had against West Ham, but got to put James in there.
Yeah, I do think it'll be Tosin and Chalobah in the middle, center backs alongside Kukurea, of course, in the left back spot. Much as I loved Achimpong that first week, now that Tosin's back, it just seems like those are your two guys.
Especially against a more physical team.
Yeah, and you trust those guys.
Yeah, I would do that as well, and Chelsea should think about hiring me.
And they might. As long as you keep getting those coaching badges, they might consider that.
Well, this is such a tangent. I can't talk about this right now, but yeah, the coaching license system in the USA is so effed up. It's thousands and thousands of dollars more expensive each level that you go up than any European country that I've looked at, and I'm sure South America is the same.
If I were you, I would just start a TikTok series where you look into the camera every day and just say, I will be the manager for the U.S. men's national team in 2026.
Like those guys that train.
Neil Kennedy, his brother, I
striker.
forget his name, but I think his brother is going to be a midfielder. I just have been starting to see his videos. Looks pretty much like Neil, but Neil, the way he can bend the balls into the net over the other goals that he sets up. Guy bites an apple like I've never seen before.
Does he eat the core?
No, but he just...
I've eaten the core before. Once. That's not something I do habitually.
So he'll bite an apple and then put it back into his duffel bag and go somewhere else, and then he'll take it out again once he arrives somewhere else.
That's so disgusting. So it's in his bag with his sweaty gym socks and his dirt-filled cleats?
I don't know, but those of you listening, if you know Neil Kennedy, just unreal.
I mean, I will say this. The first day I ever played soccer, I walked past my neighbor and I said, this is my first time ever playing, and I'm going to play for the World Cup, USA for the World Cup. Not this year, 2026, because that's too soon. So I gave myself until 2030.
Oh, I respect that. And while we're on the topic, actually, because rosters have been coming out for this international break here in September, speaking of the U.S. men's national team, there's one player that shockingly did not make the roster for the U.S. men's team. Sony.
Come on.
Do you remember? Did you see the video when he signed with LAFC? It was some woman that was the president of the team.
You're gonna make the team. Yeah.
Thought that meant he could play for USA.
Oh my! I did see that video. Yeah, pathetic. Well, I think that's where we gotta leave it. I don't have anything else to say. Do you?
Just that I'm never watching MLS.
Wow. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Time to go to bed because I'm tired. Mia san Mia.
Up the Chelsea.